Bolshevik revolutionary and theorist who became the leader of the Soviet Union after Lenin's death. Historians argue about just how many deaths his regime was responsible for, but estimates place the number somewhere between 10 and 20 million, killed by assassination, gulag, famine and forced resettlement. Joseph Stalin, the poster boy of serial killers. He confessed to 30 murders, but the number is likely higher. Little about his neutral manner suggested his true nature, as a killer, rapist and necrophiliac. Ted Bundy, a serial killer who was judged to be legally sane during his trial. He was convicted of murdering 17 men and boys. He was also a necrophiliac, a rapist, a cannibal and stored parts of his victims in his freezer. He was beaten to death in prison. Jeffrey Dahmer, born into a wealthy and influential Saudi family, and was a major figure in the Mujahideen's war against the Soviets in Afghanistan. He later founded Al-Qaeda and was responsible for orchestrating 9/11. Osama bin Laden, the most prolific serial killer in American history. He murdered 49 women before being caught. He was also a necrophiliac. He was given life without parole. Gary Ridgway, among the most powerful Nazi elites. A failed chicken farmer, he was one of Hitler's most trusted lackeys, charged with constructing and managing the concentration camps. He was also the head of the Gestapo and built the SS from a minor force into a great terror. He attempted to negotiate with the Allied powers at the end of the war, without Hitler's knowledge. When Hitler discovered his treachery, he ordered his arrest, but the British captured him first. He killed himself soon afterwards. Heinrich Himmler, the head of the Manson family, a cult that murdered 7 people in the early 1970s. Manson was originally a singer, songwriter, and believed that the killings would help bring about a race war in America. His term for this war was Helter Skelter, a misapplied Beatles lyric. Charles Manson killed 33 young men, by luring or forcing them into his home and strangling them. His serial murders are made somehow even more terrifying by the fact that he was a clown, Pogo the Clown, on his free time. He was executed in 1994 after waiting on death row for 14 years. John Wayne Gacy ruled Japan from 1928 to 1989. During his reign in 1937, Japan occupied China's capital city, then called Nanjing, anglicized into Nanking, during the Second Sino-Japanese War. For 6 weeks, Japanese troops raped and murdered Chinese civilians. The incident came to be known as the Nanking Massacre and the Rape of Nanking. Estimates place the death toll between 200,000 and 300,000. The massacre is still denied by many Japanese politicians, straining international relations. Emperor Showa Hirohito, the president of Iraq between 1989 and 2003, when he was violently deposed by the United States and the coalition of the willing. His regime is responsible for between 1/4 and 250,000 of his own people, depending on who you ask. Saddam Hussein, the supreme architect of the Holocaust, responsible for the death, dismemberment and displacement of millions, and generally considered the most evil person in history. His legacy continues to influence the life of every individual on the planet. Adolf Hitler, the president of Syria, is considered a war criminal and mass murderer by most conscientious international observers. He was on his way to a career as a London ophthalmologist when his older brother died in a car wreck, leaving him as heir to the Assad political dynasty. Assad's punitive response to Arab Spring protests in his country precipitated the outbreak of civil war that's still being fought. Bashar al-Assad, one of the original architects of fascism, was responsible for heinous war crimes. Before World War II, during the Second Italo-Ethiopian War, he ordered the bombing of Red Cross hospitals and used mustard gas against enemy troops. There were also a number of massacres and summary executions without trials. During World War II, he used similar measures to cow the population of occupied Yugoslavia. Benito Mussolini refined the autocratic cult of personality that his father began. His poor handling of the economy led to mass starvation, and his regime was responsible for mass exterminations, rapes and other crimes against humanity. His son is no better. Kim Jong-il, terrorist who murdered 77 people, 69 of whom were children. He infiltrated an island summer camp for the Workers' Youth League, a group affiliated with the ruling Norwegian Labour Party. Breivik committed the mass killing to draw popular attention to a manifesto he wrote, a far-right extremist's screed against Muslims, feminists and multiculturalism. And is Behring Breivik.